A lot of people get into property just to feel it. If it doesn't add up, I don't even bother.
What do you think of the buy-to-let market now?
Everyone says it's dead. I think it's okay. If you have the money to get into buy-to-lets and you can hold, I think it pays off. I left the house at 18, came back at 24 to save money for my first property. And it was hard.
Sometimes really 10 months can change your life. Being a bit uncomfortable, having to say no, not giving into FOMO can really change the entire
1000%.
trajectory of your own life. How much do you think that property is worth now? And we are back. Another episode of the PBK podcast. Actually, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Go for it.
What's PBJ?
PB, Property by Jules.
You see, I realise sometimes I think I'm not giving enough credit. There's a lot of property buyers out there.
I followed you. I've copied you. I'm not going to even lie.
Okay.
I haven't
Fair enough.
Through loads of names. And I thought, nah, this one, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Because it's very to the point.
Exactly.
This is who I am. This is what I do. Easy marketing. So Property by Jules, 7-figure property owner, multiple different, streams of income in the property space. Have done a lot of different things.
Yep.
Mother, wife, entrepreneur, financial advisor, educator.
Bit of
Do you
that.
think I've ticked a lot of the boxes for you?
Property investor and developer, property strategist, mother, wife. Yeah, covered it. You covered it.
Okay, fair. But before we get into the property side of things, what's your backstory? What were you doing before property?
Okay, so I grew up in Brixton. I was there from the ages of 0 to 18.
Do you ever feel like you got to do this?
You know what? I'm always doing this, I'm trying to be formal all the time, but I end up always going like this.
I feel like when people say, I grew up in Brixton, it's a default to be like, yeah, come on. Okay.
But yeah, grew up in Brixton, came from kind of, I wouldn't say broken family. Parents weren't together, but very common in the Nigerian household because I'm Nigerian. They lived together but weren't together. So a lot of arguments and combat in the house. No education in terms of financial literacy. It was more of do your work in school and that's enough to get you by. But that is not, I'm sure we know, that's not what we need to thrive and do better in this society nowadays. You have to have a lot of stuff that aren't taught in schools. And that's one thing I didn't get from my parents. So I grew up there till I was 18, left the house to go to uni.
What was Brixton like when you grew up?
I loved it. People always say it's scary, but for me, it's home. It's home. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel like it was something to be frowned upon. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's like one of your fondest memories of growing up in Brixton?
Ooh. Just playing out with people from school, just playing out on the road, playing out in the parks, not feeling scared to go out. Like the local drug dealer or whatever's there, like they're your friends. Like I actually weren't scared of them. You knew who they were, but there was also a level of respect that they're not going to come near you. So it was just fun. It was fun for me and my siblings. I've got one brother and 3 sisters, and we all grew up in the same 2-bedroom flat in Brixton, and we loved it.
You touched on like the idea of, particularly I think a lot of the time, from a first generation migrant perspective, it's very much on just get by, like just manage, like manage. I think if Nigerian households
Manage it.
We find a way. But I think particularly with what you now teach and more the attitudes of Gen Zs, it's very aspirational now that you can have anything. Where do you think that shift really came from?
Social media. Social media highlights everything. It just makes people think that it's easy to attain whatever you want in life. And I think you can testify with property. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You have to put the work in to get there. But social media does kind of glorify it. That makes people think you can be a property owner at the age of 10, and it's just not that easy. So for me, I think one thing that really helped me with property is just a mindset shift. I came from a very poverty kind of mindset of you live hand to mouth. So I think changing that took a long time. But once I got that mindset shift of abundance, it kind of helped me thrive in the property space.
Was ownership something that felt obtainable to you growing up?
No. My parents didn't own. They still don't own, unfortunately. The first time I saw someone own a property who looked like me, I think I was in the last year of college going into uni, and I visited a friend's house, and her parents were just like mine, African, but they had a garden. I thought everyone was given a house by the government. I didn't realise people can live in houses. I thought everyone lived in flats. And people that lived in houses were people that didn't look like me. Until I went to someone's house who did look like me, and I saw that. And that's what changed it.
And I think that's the thing for a lot of people in property. That's their first experience of what wealth potentially looks like.
Yeah.
That, you go to someone's house, you're like, conservatory,
Right.
not fed
Garden.
conservatory. When I first found about orangery, I said, "Oh, this is a good room, you know. Never seen one of these."
I know. Or a library in your house. Yeah.
So yeah, and I think it makes stuff a lot more aspirational. But the idea of actually saying it's not crazy to want to have a nice place to live, I think it does help with that pivot in mindsets. Did you go to university in the end?
I did. I went to university in King's College. I come from a Nigerian home. You either have to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. So I thought I'd be a doctor. Applied for it, didn't get in. So I done biomedical sciences. So I went in, but the truth is, to be honest, Kazy, I went to uni so I can leave the house. I didn't go to uni because I wanted to. Got some obviously skills from being there, but I didn't really want to go.
What advice would you have for maybe, like looking back on it in hindsight, for somebody who's in that position now?
I think in university, you do learn a lot of good skills. You do, but there's skills that you can also learn that you don't have to go to uni. There's so many like apprenticeships now and stuff you can do vocationally that you can get the same experience in uni. So if you don't have to go and you're not doing something like a doctor, lawyer, or engineer where you require a bachelor's degree, you can find it elsewhere. And you could be making money while you're learning rather than in university, you're not making any money until you've graduated. I think that's the bit of a difference.
Fair. So you went to go and study biomedical
sciences.
Did you graduate?
Yeah, I got a 2-1.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Did you go to work in your field?
Absolutely not. Not a single day did I touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your first steps out of uni then?
Cool. So after that, I'm someone who pivots a lot. I worked in Barclays Bank doing standard cashier. Then I went to work in marketing. Then I went to work in creative industries and Cannes Lions. Then I went to work in procurement and ended up in the government. So I have chopped and changed lots of different careers because honestly, I just wanted to chase the money. Wherever they would pay me more, that's where I went.
And from a hindsight perspective, do you still think that was a good thing?
I wished I actually done a course or degree or vocation that I could use. So I think I would have probably gone into banking if I look back at it.
And in terms of, obviously you said you kind of went to university to leave the house.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back to the house?
I had to save money to get my first property.
How was that?
Difficult, because I left the house at 18, came back at 24 to save money for my first property that I bought in Dagenham. And it was hard because you think you're a big girl now, you've got like the independence, you've got the money, you've got the confidence and independence. I'm now going backwards. And I'm meant to go live with my dad who had remarried and was with a new family. So it wasn't my household. So it was difficult, but I was only there for 10 months. So it was fun.
Because I think for a lot of people, like people, like I was talking to one of my cousins the other day about moving out. And I was like, at a certain age, like unless it's because you have to move out because you maybe want to spend time with a girlfriend, boyfriend that you can't at home, because you don't get on for whatever reason. Like moving out is a luxury. It's not a requirement.
I agree. I always tell people, if you don't have to leave the house, I would stay. It's the best season of your life that you'll be able to save as much money as possible.
Because in terms of like now, if we look at it like what a 1-bedroom flat on average in London, you're looking at sort of £1,300-1,400 depending on the area, and a lot more in some areas. For starting salaries, even if we're talking about a junior doctor, a nurse, an accountant, a solicitor, it's at least 50% of your paycheck.
Exactly.
Plus bills, then just general maintenance costs of having a house. Now you got furniture, you got all these other things that you have to pay for. It's a lot of money. So I think particularly that idea of delayed gratification for a lot of people that want to get on the property ladder, actually having your own home is counterintuitive to owning your own home.
Exactly, especially if you don't need to do it at that season. If you can wait, I always suggest people doing it.
But then, so obviously you've seen like this friend that's owned their own property, you know there is the potential, it's possible to people that look, sound like you, that own their own homes. But why was it still such a requirement when your friends are doing Dirty December, your friends are going to, you know, wherever else in Malta and all of these places, that you actually said, no, do you know what? I'm going to go back home. And actually, my friends are saying, listen, we want to be in Brixton, Clapham, we want to be in Battersea, and you've gone to buy in Dagenham. Talk to me about that process.
You know what? I went where I could afford. At the time when I was saving money, the only place I could afford was outer skirts of London, towards Dagenham, towards Kent areas. So that's where I went for. There's no other reason apart from that's where my money could stretch for. But when I've been a bit of a grandma, to be honest, from back in the day, in terms of saving, trying to ensure that I think long term, not just the short term. So I think that's kind of what helped me. I didn't think of the here and now, or if I want to be out partying and raving. I wanted to have a house that I can have that's my own. Because when I was growing up, we got evicted quite a few times. So I just wanted to have something that I could call my own, that no one could take from me. And if that meant waiting to go and do Dirty December and shake my whatever on a yacht, I would wait. I would wait for that season to happen. And that's what I wanted to do.
Mom's going to see this podcast. No, I'm joking.
But,
do you know what? I like to give, because I think a lot of the time we talk very holistically and like, you know, this is what happened. But let's actually talk about this first property.
Okay.
First question. How long did it take you to save your deposit?
10 months.
Do you remember how much your deposit was?
It was a deposit. So the property was £170,000. I only done a 5% mortgage. So I needed 8,500 for the deposit. And I bought in 2014. So stamp duty, lawyer fees, mortgage fees, all the other stamp duty stuff, I needed about 15K. So that's what I needed to save. And I'd done that in 10 months at my dad's house.
Nice. Do you remember how much you were earning at the time?
About 27K.
And that's the thing, because realistically, that 15K would have been your rent. Do you think you made any other sacrifices during that time outside of just moving back home? Like,
I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. I paid for my travel to go to work, and that was it. I stayed home the whole time to save up the money for my deposit. So I wasn't earning enough to be able to still go out. I had to sacrifice something.
And I think that's the kind of reality check sometimes, that sometimes really 10 months can change your life. And 10 months of a bit of graft, being a bit uncomfortable, having to say no, not giving into FOMO, can really change the entire
1000%.
trajectory of your own life. Because, you know, saving £8,000 for the deposit, a further £7,000 for professional fees and acquisition costs, but you now control an asset that's worth 100, you know, or that was £180,000 at the time. How much do you think that property is worth now?
So I actually sold that property 18 months after buying it.
Okay.
Yeah, so bought property in 2014, got married in 2015, got pregnant with twins straight away. So we decided to sell it. In that 18 months that it went up by 60K. So that's why I'm always, like you just said, delayed gratification. Make sure people understand that if you can hold on, get it. And that paid off big time, because in 18 months it went up a lot of money, and that is what helped me start the property journey.
And that's, you know, I think it's a great example of, look, we're not saying that if you buy a property for 180K, you're always going to make a 60K profit.
Absolutely not.
But generally speaking, you know, property prices, even though I think we've seen like a 0.2% dip over the last 6 months, generally long term they go up. And that's why it's all about time in the market, as opposed to trying to time the market. And getting in as early as possible means you're on the train, you're part of the journey, rather than just watching it go by. Look, and just for that kind of numbers, if we look at it from a case of saying, look, let's even say it's 24 months. 24 months, the better part of 15K in to have an uplift of £60,000 means even if you annualize it, you're looking at a 200% return on investment per annum.
And I've done nothing to the house. Literally didn't put a lick of paint. So all the money that came was literally all the profit.
So was that, you see, when like the agents came back in and you've decided to sell the property, did you know the property had gone up that much?
Honestly, Kazy, I thought it went up maybe like 1 or 2K. I had absolutely no idea that properties can go up that much. Obviously, this was 2014, 2015 now, but I thought they were joking. So when people actually came and put down the offer, I was just like, is this what property is about?
You were just waiting for someone to be like, got him.
Literally, got it. No, I was surprised.
Yeah. So then that was like your kind of like, wow moment. Like, property
There's money
can
in there.
really make you money. So what were your next steps?
So next steps, as I mentioned, we got pregnant. So we wanted to get a house before the twins were born. So we moved to Kent, bought a three/4 bed family home, and then with the profit from the Dagenham flat, bought a flat in Manchester and a flat in Greenhive with the profit.
Where's Greenhive?
Just outside Kent. It's in Kent, like Greenhive's next to Dartford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So still that Kent, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. And I guess like for me, my question is at that point in time, you're not working in property. You're not doing property. Are you consuming like content around property, or was it just like in isolation?
Isolation, learn on the job.
So what was it, just that I've just made 60K, kind of let me roll my money and go again? Or was there any strategy behind the investment?
There was no strategy behind it. It was let the money work for us again. And then we started learning as time went on a bit more advanced strategies. So the service accommodation, learning a bit about reconversions, learning a bit about HMOs. That's kind of how it started. But it's all started with traditional buy-to-lets. We got about 6-7 buy-to-lets before we done anything outside of that.
What do you think of the buy-to-let market now? Let me pause the video for a quick word from our sponsors. Now, let me put you onto something that could seriously level up your property game. When I started investing, I didn't fully grasp the benefits of using a limited company structure. But here's the deal. Over 75% of new UK investment properties are now purchased through limited companies. Now, why? Because it's a more tax efficient way of purchasing. You can claim your mortgage interest reliefs, benefits from lower corporation tax rates, plus it sets you up nicely for scaling your property portfolio and passing on wealth to the next generation. Simply put, it can help you increase your margin. Now, setting up and managing a limited company might sound daunting, but that's where GetGround come in. They handle the entire process for you, from setting up your company in days to managing your accounts and tax returns and ensuring compliance, all under one roof. They even help you find financing to help you fund your investments, your own dedicated consultant, and a completely digital dashboard to track and manage the performance of your investments. But because I'm serious about giving back, I've got a great offer for you. GetGround is offering a free investment consultation plus 3 months of free accounting and tax services when you sign up through my link. Now, this is a huge opportunity to get started on the right foot. So if you're serious about building or optimizing your portfolio, then check out the link in the description. Fill out the form for a free consultation and claim your 3 months of free services. Don't miss out on this. You can even transfer existing buy-to-let companies over to GetGround and still take advantage of the amazing offer. Now back to the video.
I honestly think, everyone says it's dead. I think it's okay. If you have the money to get into buy-to-lets and you can hold, I think it pays off. Capital appreciation, stuff obviously is going up a lot slower than it used to. But like we said in the beginning, the trajectory is still going up. So I think it still works if you can hold on to it. But there's obviously stuff like BRRs and stuff that can make your money work faster. But if you're not that risk averse, I don't think people should go into it if you're not ready to pay the price for the risk and the time that it takes.
Yeah, everything is risk and reward. And I think that the one thing about buy-to-let is, whilst, quote unquote, you see a lot of podcasts, a lot of short clips, reels, TikToks, etc., saying, oh, the buy-to-let market's dead. The reality is, in business, a lot of the time you follow the money. And when you see like, you know, BlackRock, you see like big funds, you see like even Barclays, banks, etc., investing in single buy-to-let units, it shows that there must be some type of research that's gone in to say, actually, the market's still going to be pretty buoyant. You know, we've seen the way rents have gone. Rents have only gone in one direction. We've year on year failed to hit home build targets, which means that supply and demand is still going to work out. And I think a lot of the economists are predicting interest rates to come back down over the next 18 months.
It's going to boost demand.
Which, is going to make ownership, you know, more beneficial than potentially like renting as well.
Agree. And I think that's why I always tell, when I have my mentees that I speak to and they want to go straight into like the advanced stuff, I don't dissuade them, but if a buy-to-let is something that you can do and you don't have the time to manage and do all that stuff, I actually do recommend that.
I think it's like, particularly if you've got a business, like a cash flowing business, if you've got something else that's making you the money and you're just looking at somewhere to park funds. It
works.
I always talk about property as, you know, property gives me the luxury to try other things, make mistakes. Like we had a Savage Dan on a couple of weeks ago and he was talking about, you know, no, I shouldn't laugh, but losing like 100K plus
Yeah.
in crypto.
Yeah.
Like obviously, but you can do that when you have other assets to
Yeah.
kind of give you that I can't go broke stability fund,
Yeah.
which I think property does for a lot of people.
It does.
So obviously you've transitioned from, so you bought, your first property, that then snowballed into two, you then continued to buy properties.
Yeah.
Was there any real strategy in relation to area? At what point did you start to invest with more purpose?
With more purpose, it was after we got a mentor. And I think paying sometimes for education that you can't glean because you've not been in that field, I think is really important. We got a mentor who was really big in the game, really big in the commercial space, in terms of commercial to residential, and doing things that we can only dream of at that point. So we got him as a mentor, and he taught us really the in-depth numbers and the strategy and the risk appetite of going harder, making your money work harder for you. And that's kind of where we expedited from the buy to lets, and that's where our strategy changed to focus on areas where you can grow properly from the BRR route, from the reconversion route, and that's kind of what kind of helped us snowball it to more.
What would you say are one of the best skill sets you learned from having a mentor?
That's a great question.
Thank you. I try to do my job well.
In terms, I think not being scared of something that's unknown. So with us, we hadn't ventured into making flats out of a building. We haven't ventured into getting contractors to do really hard stuff, not just painting the wall and decorative work, but actually partitions, actually making flats, actually changing the meters to make it into different flats. That stuff I think helped us a lot more get into the property space and make it work better for us.
So you got a mentor.
Yeah.
You started to strategize more. One of the most common questions that I get asked is, how do you analyze a deal? Can you kind of, and it could be whether it's a buy to let, a BRR, something you're going to flip. Talk to me about your process from you see something or how you even find things and how you make sure that it's a good opportunity.
For me, data always speaks. So looking at the ceiling of the GDV, if on this particular road, all houses are selling for 100K, and you're buying a property, they will say undervalued or whatever for 50K, but the refurb work is going to be another 50K. You're not making any addition in value to the property. So for me, the numbers have to make sense. If you buy it at a good price and there is any redevelopment, refurbishment costs there, if the costs don't make sense from the jump, I don't even venture into it. The numbers have to make sense. It's not, a lot of people get into property with just a feeling of, oh, my friend has bought there, oh, it looks like it's going to be a nice area. But if the numbers don't stack up from the beginning, factoring in the purchase costs, the solicitor fees, the mortgage costs, if you're doing bridging, if it doesn't add up, I don't even bother.
So you look at all the numbers. So give me some examples. So say, for example, you want to know how much, you said you've seen this property, someone says below market value 50K.
Yeah.
But you know it needs work.
Yeah.
What's your process for actually working out what the refurb cost is going to be?
Go with someone who knows it. Go with a builder, a decorator, a quantity surveyor, someone who that's their specialist field. I don't attest to know everything because I can go into a property and miss things because I don't have the eye for it. I always bring someone on who's got the expertise to come with me to give me a quote for the refurb. And if that stacks up, then we go for it. If it doesn't, I leave it.
Fair. And with your GDVs as well, the back end values, because it's great to buy a property for a low price, and loads of us will, be sent stuff by deal sources and they'll say, yeah, it's going to be worth 150K. But obviously you have to fact check that yourself. How do you confirm your GDVs?
So again, data, looking at what similar properties have sold for recently, talking to surveyors, because we know surveyors now, and we can actually speak to them and ask what will this be valued at. We know the finish of the property we're going to do, because there's a thing, I think, because you have a lot of properties, I know, down south, and you obviously redo them at a high spec. And I think that when you do it to a high spec in London, it's different to doing it up north. Majority of my portfolio is up north. And I do think there's a ceiling. So even if you refurb it to an amazing spec and you want to rent it out, the rental market won't hold as much as London.
I mean, I think it's the same. Look, it's the same everywhere, realistically. Like, don't get me wrong. If you do a really nice refurb, you're going to get more money than your average property.
You will, but the demand.
But however, it's like, let's say, for example, So let's take an area such as Sydenham, for example. A 1-bedroom flat, might range from 1,100 to something that's maybe a little bit pokey, quite small, not in the best condition, bad communals, etc., up to like a new build with like a balcony or a private garden. 1 bed might be £1,700.
Yeah.
Now, if you do an amazing spec where, you've got maybe Bang& Olufsen surround sound and, you've got ceramic, like, floor to ceiling tiles and hardwood floors, you maybe on a really good day might get 1,800, 1,900, 2,000.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you put a gold toilet in, like, diamond dials in the sink. Like, nobody's going to pay more than that because they're not going to get any more enjoyment or value out of the property for themselves. I think everywhere, the concept of pound for pound return on a refurb is every time you spend money on a property,
that give you money back?
Is it going to give you money back?
Yeah.
And what's the relative rate of return? Like, is spending, so you spoke about, for example, your first family home that was a 3/4 bed. Now you could do a loft conversion potentially on that property, but it's going to cost you, like, and it's, let's say you weren't living there, you're renting it out, and it's going to cost you £50,000. Now if it's not going to affect the end value by more than 50,000, you're taking on risk for no relative reward,
just to make it look pretty, and there's no point.
But
I do think up north in like Yorkshire areas, even if you were to, for example, use your Sydenham example, the demand of the renters there just doesn't command enough. So there's a limit to how sexy you need to make the property, because it just doesn't hold weight.
You have to understand your market demographic and cater to what they want. So if they want more affordable housing, that's what you need to make. And
there's no point in putting bells and whistles in there.
Yeah, you go and get the very basic, like Clerkenwell kitchen or the Greenwich kitchen rather than Clerkenwell if you're going to Howdens, for example.
Howdens,
you get, the landlord pack, as opposed to, you go for just the MDF worktops over, your granite or your quartz, because you're spending the extra money, you're not going to see a return.
Exactly.
So I think investing up north, like, that's something that I'm not familiar with. I've never invested.
That's what I tend to do
outside of London. Why, outside of, like, obviously the monetary side of things, what is it that you like about investing up north?
It's something new. It's something new, and the monetary thing, I think, is a big point to touch on. London for me is very pricey, and I want to be able to make the money work for me up north. I have not got 50, 60, 70,000 pounds to put down on refurb, but if I take it up north, I can do a lot more with that money. So that's why that's my market.
Is there a specific area? Because up north, for those that are there, they'd be like, that's very wide. Is there a specific area
for me,
up north?
Normally Doncaster, Hull, Sheffield, Liverpool, so I've got the majority of my portfolio.
And how did you identify those properties over Bolton and Barnsley and all the other areas that you could have invested in?
Again, no data. So in, for example, Doncaster, they're going to reopen an airport. The airport was shut down a few years ago. They're reopening it, fingers crossed, in 2026. That's going to bring in a lot of footfall into that area. Sheffield is a major city, and for there we've got properties there for capital appreciation, but what spills out of that is Doncaster and Hull, because it's like half an hour drive, and people who can't afford to live in that city come there. So we've got very good rental there. We've got HMOs in that area as well, because a lot of people, not that they can't afford to buy, the ones who can't afford to buy, they live in HMOs. So we've got a very strong market there too. So it's just about the data and where people are moving to. And when I used to work in government, I worked a lot in the levelling up agenda, and the government is moving a lot of people and organisations out of London into these areas. So I worked in a company that moved its head office while I was there to Bedford. Companies are moving people outside of the main hotspot. So there's going to be demand. So that's kind of where I follow the trend.
Yeah, I mean, if you start to see like big organisations, whether it be like, your Googles or whoever it may be, setting up head offices in areas, they're going to be bringing skilled workers that are going to have an increased level of disposable income. Like, I remember I can't remember where it was, but it was like at a point there was somewhere in Africa where they discovered something. I can't remember, so whether it was diamonds or it was cobalt, it was something, but so many like tech companies were moving out there, and because there wasn't a high standard of accommodation, anybody that had it like was charging like £5,000-10,000 a month, because it was just like, well, we've got people here, they expect a certain standard. And obviously, it's if you can cater to that, it makes a lot of sense to be an early adopter. So you're investing in the north. Like, talk to me about strategy shifts now, because you said over time you've shifted out of standard buy-to-lets and gone into BRR, gone into HMOs. What's your strategy at the moment, and why?
Strategy, I think I'll always have a BRR in my portfolio of some sort. So right now we're converting a property that was burnt down into 3 flats that should hopefully be done by the end of July.
Whereabouts is that?
That one's in Doncaster. So the property next door caught fire and burnt down that building and the other one. So we're reconverting that now into 3 separate flats. So there's always going to be some type of development project that I'm doing. But I want to go now more into the commercial side. Doing commercial to resi, or just commercial and renting it out to organisations. We did have one in London that we recently sold, and it was let to solicitors. The solicitors that were actually helping us do our deals. So something like that is more where I'm heading towards. I think it takes the same amount of energy to do a normal buy-to-let or a HMO as it would to do a building that you can make 6, 7, 8 flats out of. So that's kind of where I want to go to. Is
the Doncaster one, is that your first flat conversion, or have you done any previously?
No, I've done one before.
How did you find the process differs from a flat conversion as opposed to a standard refurb?
It was very different. You have to put a lot more trust in the builders.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more work for them to do. There's a lot more stages where they can get it wrong. And the time makes a big difference when you've got bridging and you've got a certain deadline that you need to hit, and you need to get them to come and do surveying to draw down. There's a lot more things that can go wrong.
Okay, so let's go kind of through this process of whether it's this or your last conversion. Did you buy it with planning, or did you get the planning yourself?
So no, we got the planning separately.
So you purchased the property, unconditionally, and then went through the planning process. Were there any scary moments with planning, or were you quite confident you were going to get it?
Confident because, again, data. We looked at the road and saw how many HMOs were in that, how many properties that have had planning refused were in the area, and we were quite confident that we would get it done. And I've also got a contact in the planning team that can kind of vet you before you put the application through and let you know, will it get approved or not? So that was also helpful.
So something similar to kind of like a pre-planning, where you're saying, look, this is our potential plans. Are there any red flags, anything you want us to change? They can't guarantee it, but they say, look, subject to X, we'd likely, recommend this scheme for approval.
And then they change certain things, like dormer windows need to be bought this way and that way. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So it was full refurb from a fire damaged property.
Yeah.
Was there any issues about it being fire damaged? Like, was there anything additional or any things that added?
Yeah. So the party wall. So the house next door that got burnt down, the builders who were building that property kind of went into our party wall and were doing things on our side of the property. So that was a bit of an issue, trying to engage with the builders on the other side to ensure that what they are doing doesn't affect what our plans are. So there was a bit of back and forth, a bit of arguing, a bit of kerfuffle with the builders, but it ended up getting sorted.
Fair. And it's okay, so you've got planning. With the planning process, like, what professionals? Was it just an architect, or did you have a planning consultant?
Architect, planning consultant, design team as well. And also with the actual council, we had another representative to help us with the entire process. So yeah, there's a few moving parts, and the builders were obviously a major part of it.
Yeah. That's good. So full planning, you got planning now. Was there any seal attached to this? So did you play any like levy or?
No.
So no seal. Yeah, because different councils have different levies. And some of them look at it and say, well, if you're not technically creating new space, so it does not class as a new build. Yeah. Sometimes it's exempt, or also sometimes they just say, look, we need houses in the area.
Exactly.
So actually have incentives. Okay, so that's quite good. Now, in terms of the way in which you structured the deal, so the property was fire damage, which means no standard, and obviously you're developing the property, so it's not going to be a mortgage or a buy-to-let.
No.
What did you use to buy the property?
We bought it cash.
You bought it cash?
Yeah.
Do you remember how much you bought that one for?
Yeah, 100k.
100k?
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. The money goes far in London.
That's why I'm not London based. This is why I go up north.
100k. That's the deposit
on
the flat.
Exactly.
And you're getting 3 flats out of it.
Exactly.
Okay, so 3 flats, 100k. So you bought cash.
Yeah.
What about how are you financing or finance the refurb?
So the roof was literally half gone. There was birds flying in and out of it. It was completely messed up. So we've done the roof first, and that roof cost us about £70,000. And then to do the actual structure of the rest of the property, it was about £180,000. So the way we structured it is we've got bridging. We've got bridging, obviously, plus our money. But I think this is where a lot of people who are new into the property need to understand how it works, because with this particular bridging company, they pay you based on the work you have done. So in retrospect, rather than giving you the money up front based on the final GDV. So if you don't have money to do the works, you're going to be screwed if you think bridging will help you in the front end. So when it comes to all this stuff that you see online, I really want people to understand the intricacies of the different bridging companies you can get, how they actually value you, how they give you the money back. So we are doing it in retrospect.
Yes, they pay you in arrears.
Yeah.
Did they have a minimum you could spend before doing drawdowns?
Yes. We had to spend ourselves 19%.
Okay.
So our refurb budget, 19% had to be paid upfront by us and for all the work to be
so
done.
effectively you did kind of like 5 drawdowns effectively over the term.
3
drawdowns.
We did 3 drawdowns.
Okay, so you cool. So you did 3 drawdowns, so you spent money. They were like, right,
let me check it.
Can we see your invoices, or can we come and check, send out like a monitoring surveyor? And I think people need to be very aware that the less money you have, the more it costs you, because the more times a surveyor has to attend.
Exactly.
And every time they attend, they
gotta
say,
pay
well,
them
look,
too.
here's another invoice for you on top of things.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I found is quite creative, and obviously maybe not so much for if you're operating where you're remotely managing, but you can actually incorporate your time as a project manager into those drawdowns. So which means that you're paid throughout the project rather than just entirely off the back end. If you're full-time in property, to help give you more of a lifeblood and cash flow to actually pay your bills 100%. As well.
If I was in London, I'd be doing that. I'm not traveling up there to project manage it. That's the difference.
But overall, how have you found the refurb in terms of the remote management?
You know what? It's been okay. The builders we have, they're decent. So I think because I've got their eyes and ears and they are very responsive, it doesn't feel as difficult. I've had other builders, just for example, in one of my HMOs putting in bathrooms, they were terrible. You're trying to call them, they're not answering you, and obviously it's quite a far distance. So if you don't have that level of communication, it makes it really difficult to really understand how it's going. So you need to have eyes on the ground. This is why I do it full time. If I can't get hold of you, I'm driving up there to make sure you're doing what you say you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because there is, like, obviously you already spoke about on acquisition and through the planning stage, you've got, party wall surveyors, you've got structural engineers, you've got architects, you've got planning consultants, and you've got various other professionals. Now at build stage, you're having to manage your building control sign off, your services, your new build warranty. How do you manage and stay on top of all those moving parts?
I'm quite OCD when it comes to like what needs to be done anyway. So I've always got a spreadsheet open, and because this is my full-time job, I don't have a 9 to 5. I have more time to commit to it. So I've got my husband as well is actually very heavily involved. I don't act like it's just me who does all this. It's me and my husband who are property by Jules, and he's very good on the strategy and I'm very good on the admin side. So all of that stuff, it comes second nature to me.
Nice. How do you find working with your husband?
I'm joking. No, it's amazing.
He's gonna watch. Your husband and your mum are gonna watch this together.
No, it's
and
amazing.
They're both gonna be cussing you.
It's great. It's just we have to work on our strengths in terms of he's very, very strategy based, and I'm very, as I mentioned, admin focused, dotting the I's, doing all the emails, doing our tenant communication with our actual tenants, and also property managing other clients' properties too. So I'm very good on that, and we work really well as a team. Obviously, it's just the cutoff of when does business talk stop and relationships talk start. That's where we're blurring the lines. But it's great. We've been doing it for years. Prior to doing property, we also had another business as well. So we're used to the business side of things. It's just,
So obviously you've been doing a lot of different strategies from buy to let, BRR, now transitioning to the commercial space. Actually, before I finish, what's your plan with the properties that you're finishing the 3 flats? You're going to retain them? You're going to sell them?
Retain them and rent them out.
And you go in standard professional tenants, or are you going to be using any schemes?
No schemes, not social house and professional tenants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So transitioning into all of these different schemes and strategies, Why are you on the internet?
You have to be visible. You have to let people know what you're doing. And as well, even going back to my upbringing or whatever, I never saw someone who looked like me doing this. And there's not very women in the property space speaking about what they're doing. So I do feel that this is kind of something that I want to also do. The people that have been inspired or learned from me, that's the reason why I do it. Because I don't really like going on social media. I don't really like doing content that much. But if I can do it and it helps other people, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I think it's always nice moments, like particularly if you're back in Brixton or somewhere you grew up and someone's like, oh, like I watched one of your videos or I saw something that you did.
Yeah.
It's always nice to give back.
It is.
What have you got any stories that really kind of stick with you in terms of when the social media is a bit long, when you're thinking, I can't bother to talk to the camera today, that remind you actually it is kind of worth it?
Yes. So I went to a function, a talk, a little while ago, and there was someone who was telling me about her situation. She was telling me that she came to me and basically was like, I've got a friend who's in a situation. I've got a friend who's got a mum whose dad who's recently passed away, and they don't know what to do about property. And they were telling me this story. Then she was basically started welling up and crying, and I went to the side of her, and she was telling me, it's not my friend, it's actually me that's going through this. And just the words of advice you give people, and them checking in and telling you, by the way, what you said has really helped me. I've done X, Y, Z. I've spoken to that person, and we're getting to a better space. Her mum is now not crying every day. They have a plan in place to get basically the money stuff sorted. That stuff is what really helps and touches me, and to let me know I'm not doing it in vain.
Yeah, I think it's really good to be able to obviously help people.
Yeah.
And also it reinforces that actually you probably know more than you gave yourself
And
credit
this
for.
is it. The education that you give people, it's not it shouldn't be looked at as you're trying to big yourself up. People actually don't know certain things. When you say it, it actually helps people.
Yeah, and I think because from a starting point, you almost were a purposeful property owner,
Yeah.
but an accidental property investor.
Exactly.
And then over time, like you said, through engaging with builders, probably through having some bad tenants, through dealing with bad agents, through so many different trials and tribulations, you've actually learnt so much
100%.
that you now have so much to share with people. Have you ever seen any negative responses to you kind of talking about being in property, whether it's from people you do or don't know?
My dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Also, we're getting husband, mum,
No.
and dad on the podcast. Like, do you just want to blame the twins as well for something?
Absolutely not. No, there's my babies. No, not blaming them, but
Okay.
coming from a traditional Nigerian household where everything's kind of kept close to
Yeah.
your chest, they're not used to sharing your business. So me being on social media is very, very strange for them. Remember when I put up my very first video, my dad was like, "Can you take it down? Why are you telling people I was a cab driver for? Why are you telling people we didn't have a lot of money?" And I get it, because that's just not how they were brought up. But if my story can help someone, I'd rather tell it. So my dad was one who was one of my biggest critics. Now he just leaves me alone. But yeah.
Does he now? I'm sure he shares your video in the group chats.
Just blocked him.
Nah,
No,
before you know it, we'll have the videos in the aunties and the uncles, the group chats on the WhatsApp.
My daughter, she's doing so well now. Yeah, those ones.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's good though. That's good that obviously
Yeah.
there's been a kind of full circle moment.
It has.
And he actually sees what you've
The
been able
benefit,
to
yeah.
achieve. What's next for you?
What's next? Commercial, getting more commercial, getting more visibility, getting more projects that challenge me. Kind of doing what you do, doing big and better, coming closer to London.
Yeah. We're gonna chat. That's everybody I get on the pod. I'm just slowly trying to
Bringing
say,
them in.
come on,
Because the numbers you're
come
doing, I'm just like,
on.
I need to do those numbers too.
Yeah,
But
nah,
yeah.
London's good.
Yeah.
The thing about London is you can really, as we touched on earlier, push those ceiling prices.
Yeah.
So the property that probably is worth 500k when the market's good,
Yeah.
it's 600k, and before you
Exactly.
know it, you went from making 50,000 to 150 just because
Exactly.
you did a good job.
Exactly.
And the market was in a good place.
Exactly. That's the thing. The market has to also be in the right space for you to get that. Yeah.
What words of advice would you have for somebody who kind of thinks like, I feel like I'm where you were 5-10 years ago, but I need that push. I need that encouragement.
I'm always going to have to bring it back to my faith and say that you can do it, in terms of like the mindset and what you've had and what you have gone through, that doesn't define your future. The past honestly shouldn't be forgotten. It's got you to where you are now. But the mindset shift, I think, is very, very important for you to believe that if you can do it, I can do it, and we don't look any different from you, you can also do it. I know it sounds very vague and very airy-fairy, but honestly, if I didn't see someone who looked like me do it, I wouldn't have thought it was possible. So look at us and see you can do it too.
Amazing. If people want to connect with you, find you, how can they get in touch?
They can find me on social media. My name is Property by Jules, and that's
That's a good name. Property by, I like that one.
Jewels. That's on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram.
Amazing. Well, that has been another episode of the PBK podcast. Each and every week, we bring you a special guest. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because less than half of you who watch this video have actually subscribed, and it's free. And if you do it now, we always get bigger and better guests to continue giving you great gems and educational bits to help you on your property journey. Catch you next week. Peace.